Hello, everyone. There is something holy in the way words move between us, like light through a cracked door. They come gentle and slow or fierce like thunder. And if you listen just right, you can feel the weight of the sky in a single sentence. You see, conversation is not just talk. It is rhythm. It is soul reaching soul. It is the art of being seen and letting others be seen too. Too many of us are just waiting to reply, not truly listening. We let words float past, missing the color of their meaning, missing the silence between the syllables, where truth often lives. But when we choose presence, when we stand in the moment like a tree in the wind, rooted yet open. Listening is not simply the act of being quiet while someone else speaks. It is not the pause you take before launching into your own response. True listening is presence. It is leaning in with your heart, not just your ears. It is a stillness of the soul that says, I see you, I hear you, and I am here for what you have to say. That kind of listening, the kind that feels like a warm light in a dark room, holds the power to transform any conversation. When we listen with intention, with no desire to interrupt or redirect the spotlight, we allow another person to feel safe. And safety is the foundation of trust. It tells the other person, you matter enough for me to give you this moment fully. In a world so hungry for validation, that kind of attention is rare and priceless. It changes the way people speak. It encourages honesty. It welcomes vulnerability. It invites the truth to sit at the table. There is science behind this too. When someone senses they are truly being heard, their brain releases oxytocin, the bonding chemical. Their nervous system calms. Their defenses soften. And in return, they are more likely to listen to you as well. It becomes a mutual space of openness instead of a battlefield of opinions. Words flow with ease. Meaning deepens. But this kind of listening takes courage. It means we must set aside the need to prove something, the urge to be right, the fear of being unseen. We must resist the pull of distraction and ego and sit fully in the now. And when we do, we invite a kind of magic into our conversations, not because we say the perfect thing, but because we offer the perfect presence. If you want dramatically better conversations, begin with the quiet power of listening. Listen not as a tactic, but as a gift. Listen not just to reply, but to truly receive. Because when you listen with your whole being, you give people permission to be real. And in that space of realness, everything begins to change to overall key points and add only necessary ending lines. Empathy is the invisible thread that binds hearts before words even take shape. It is the quiet understanding that reaches across differences and says, I may not have lived your life, but I am willing to feel what you feel. In any conversation, when empathy leads, connection follows. You can have all the knowledge, all the perfect phrasing, and still fall short if there is no emotional bridge between you and the person you are speaking with. Empathy builds that bridge. Science tells us that when we witness someone in emotional pain or joy, the same parts of our brain light up as if we are experiencing it ourselves. That is the power of mirror neurons. They let us experience one another's reality without saying a word. It means we are wired to understand each other, to care, to feel together. But in our rush to fix, to correct, to explain, we often forget that the heart needs to be held, not handled. In dramatically better conversations, Empathy is not a soft detail, it is the foundation. It turns conflict into cooperation. It turns walls into windows. When you speak with empathy, you give space for another person's truth to exist without judgment. You allow them to breathe and unfold in front of you. And that space, that freedom, invites honesty, it invites healing, it invites change. Empathy is not agreeing, it is not giving in, it is not weakness, it is strength in its most graceful form. It allows you to speak the truth while still holding compassion. It helps you say difficult things in a way that can be received instead of rejected. It turns language into connection, and people remember how you made them feel long after they forget what you said. Better conversations are not built on winning, they are built on understanding. So let your words carry kindness, even when they are firm. Let your tone soften, even when the message is clear. Let your presence assure the other person that they are not alone, because when empathy is present, even silence feels like support. And that kind of presence makes everything else more powerful. Being present in a conversation is more than just showing up with your body. It is arriving with your full attention, your open heart, and your quiet mind. It is resisting the pull of distractions, the ping of your phone, the noise of your thoughts, and choosing instead to be completely with the person before you. Presence is not loud, but it speaks volumes. It tells the other person, you are worthy of my time, my energy, my now. Too often we think better conversations come from saying the right thing, but sometimes the most powerful part of a conversation is not what is said, but how we show up for it. When you are present, the person across from you feels it. They feel seen. They feel valued. And when people feel seen, they open up. They begin to speak from a deeper place, no longer performing or protecting, but simply sharing what is real. Presence quiets the noise and makes room for truth. It lets you notice the things that words cannot carry, the shift in someone's eyes, the pause before they speak, the sigh that holds more than any sentence could explain. All of that is communication. All of that matters. And if you are truly present, you catch it. You respond to it. You make the invisible known. Science shows us that attention creates stronger emotional bonds. Eye contact, body language, micro expressions. All of these are part of how we speak without words. When your presence is steady, calm, and sincere, it calms the nervous system of the person you're speaking with. It makes the conversation feel safe. It makes it feel sacred. Presence is not something you perform, it is something you offer. It does not demand praise, but it changes everything it touches. It is a kind of silent love, a quiet gift that says, this moment matters and so do you. So in every exchange, whether simple or deep, let your full presence lead. Let your attention be your first act of compassion. Let your stillness be your loudest message, because when you are truly present, your very being speaks, and sometimes that's all it takes. A sincere question is a doorway. It is not a trap, not a test, not a trick dressed up as curiosity. A sincere question is born from the heart, not the ego. It asks not to control, but to understand. And in the landscape of better conversations, it is one of the most powerful tools we have, because when you ask with real interest, you invite another person to step into their truth without fear. We live in a world full of statements, opinions shouted across rooms, judgments hurled like stones. But a sincere question softens that noise. It says, I want to know you, not just your opinion. I want to understand what shaped your view, not just debate it. It disarms. It disarms because it does not come from a place of needing to win. It comes from a place of wanting to connect. When we ask with sincerity, our tone changes, our eyes soften. The energy between two people becomes less like a match and more like a mirror. And science agrees. When someone feels genuinely invited to share, their brain becomes more open to trust, their guard drops, and suddenly you are not two people defending your corners. You are two people meeting in the middle. It's not about the complexity of the question, but the intention behind it. A simple, "What was that like for you?" or "Help me understand what you mean," can carry more weight than 100 clever remarks. And when people feel that your question is safe, honest, and free of hidden motives, they give you their truth, not the polished version, not the guarded one, the truth that lives deep in the belly, the one that doesn't always get invited to speak. Conversations change when they are built on that kind of invitation. They become deeper, kinder, wiser. And what begins as a single question can unfold into a moment of connection neither of you forgets. So ask not to judge. Ask not to reply faster. Ask to learn. Ask to understand. Ask to make room, because a sincere question can be the beginning of everything. So much of what we say never reaches its full meaning, not because the words are wrong, but because the tone and body language do not match the message. We think communication is all about the words, but science and experience both say otherwise. The way we say something often matters far more than what we say. A kind sentence spoken in a cold voice feels like rejection. A simple phrase, when delivered with warmth and eye contact, can feel like love. Our bodies speak before our mouths do. The tilt of a head, the softness in our eyes, the openness of our hands, all of these tell a story. And when that story aligns with our words, it creates harmony, it creates trust. But when the words and the body are not aligned, people sense it. They may not always know why they feel uneasy, but they know something is missing. Something is off. And that something can close a heart before a conversation even begins. Tone carries emotion. It carries intention. You can say, "I understand" 100 different ways, and each one carries a different truth. A gentle tone can turn correction into compassion. A calm tone can turn disagreement into dialogue. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard. You just have to mean what you say and let every part of your being reflect that meaning. When you are aware of how you are speaking, your presence deepens. You become more intentional, you become more connected. Conversations become less about performance and more about relationship. People don't just hear you, they feel you, and that feeling lingers. That's what makes the difference, not the perfection of your grammar or the cleverness of your thoughts, but the energy you carry when you share them. Better conversations are born when tone and body are honest, when your voice wraps your words like a hand cradling a flame, firm enough to hold, soft enough not to hurt. So speak with your whole self. Let your posture invite trust. Let your tone carry care, because when your message feels safe, it finds its way into the heart, not just the ears. Silence is often mistaken for emptiness, but in truth, it holds more weight than words ever could. In a world that rushes to fill every pause, silence is sacred. It is the space where thoughts settle and meaning rises. It is where reflection lives and emotions breathe. When we allow silence in a conversation, we are not stepping back, we are making room. Room for clarity, for truth, for understanding to unfold without pressure. Too often we are afraid of silence. We rush to fill it with chatter, with explanations, with nervous laughter. But silence is not a failure in conversation. It is a choice, a gift. It tells the other person, "Take your time, I'm here." It lets them know they don't have to hurry their feelings into neat little sentences. It allows authenticity to emerge slowly, like light at dawn, gentle and real. Science supports this too. Pauses give the brain time to process, to shift from reactive thinking to thoughtful response. It reduces tension. It opens the door to deeper self-awareness. And when someone feels they don't have to fight for space, they are more likely to speak from the heart. They are more likely to say what they truly mean, not just what sounds right in the moment. Silence also speaks when words cannot. There are moments when a person's pain is too deep for solutions. In those moments, presence and silence say more than advice ever could. A hand on the shoulder, a steady breath, eye contact held with quiet care. That is conversation too. It is the kind that does not require sound to be powerful. In dramatically better conversations, silence is a partner. It walks alongside the words, giving them shape and echo. It invites depth, it invites emotion, and it gives the listener a chance to be more than a reactor. It gives them the chance to become a witness. So do not fear the quiet. Let it rise. Let it hold space. Let it carry the weight that words sometimes cannot. Because in the stillness between sentences, people often find the truth they didn't know they were searching for. Genuine curiosity is the golden thread that weaves connection into every conversation. It is not nosy, not forceful, not coded in judgment. It is gentle. It is open. It asks because it truly wants to know, not to correct, not to impress, not to be right, but to understand. And when someone senses that kind of curiosity, they soften. Their words come more freely. Their guard begins to lower, and something real begins to emerge. Too often we speak from assumptions. We carry our own stories into the space and expect others to fit within them. But genuine curiosity pauses that. It puts the ego to the side and says, tell me your story. Help me see what I cannot see. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. Because it takes strength to admit there is more to learn. It takes humility to know that every person carries something you do not yet understand. Science shows us that curiosity lights up reward centers in the brain. It draws attention, sparks engagement, makes the mind more flexible and less defensive. When you bring curiosity into a conversation, it signals to the other person that you are not here to battle, you are here to learn. You're not building a case, you are building a bridge. And in that space, honesty grows, connection deepens, respect becomes mutual, but it must be sincere. Curiosity without sincerity feels like manipulation. People can sense when your interest is a mask, but when it's real, when it's warm and unforced, it becomes one of the most powerful tools in human connection. It allows you to ask questions that are not rehearsed, but responsive. Questions that grow from what you hear, not what you already believe. That kind of exchange is alive. It breathes. It transforms. Genuine curiosity turns an ordinary conversation into a discovery. It brings wonder back to our interactions. It reminds us that people are not puzzles to be solved, but stories to be heard. So come to the table with a listening heart, with eyes that say, I care, with a spirit that is not trying to prove, but to explore. Because when curiosity leads, connection follows. My sisters, my daughters, my mothers, stand tall. You were never meant to bow. The world may have whispered, may have roared, may have laughed, saying, sit down, be quiet, wait your turn. But you, oh, you are not built for the shadows. I want you to hear me deep down in your bones, in the place where your grandmother's prayers still hum. There comes a time in every woman's life when she must decide, will she wait or will she walk? Will she linger in the shadows of hesitation, waiting for permission? Or will she step boldly into the space that is rightfully hers? Leadership is not a gift bestowed by the world, nor is it a title handed down from above. Leadership is claimed. It is taken with the certainty of a woman who knows she was never meant to be small. From the moment she takes her first breath, a girl is taught to be careful, to be polite, to be accommodating. She is told to sit still, to wait her turn, to not be too loud, too bold, too much. She watches as hands are raised, as voices are heard, as decisions are made, and she learns that her power comes with conditions. But the truth, the undeniable, unshakable truth, is that leadership does not belong to those who are merely appointed. It belongs to those who stand up, those who refuse to shrink, those who understand that waiting for permission is the fastest way to be left behind. For too long, women have been led to believe that they must meet every qualification, tick every box, be twice as good before they dare to step forward. But history does not remember the cautious. It remembers the courageous. It remembers the women who moved before they were ready, who spoke when silence was expected, who stood when sitting was safer. There will always be voices that whisper, not yet experienced enough, not yet skilled enough, not yet the right moment. But when has change ever come to those who wait? It is not experience alone that builds a leader. It is the willingness to step into uncertainty, to embrace the discomfort of growth, to claim the space that fear would have her surrender. And what of doubt? It will be there, as it always is, creeping into the corners of her mind, telling her she is not enough. But doubt is not an enemy, it is a test. A woman who leads does not wait for doubt to disappear. She moves in spite of it. She understands that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision that fear will not control her. There will be resistance. Oh, yes. There will be those who question, who challenge, who push back. But a woman who leads does not need universal approval. She does not need the world to nod in agreement before she takes her place. She knows that strength is not found in seeking validation, but in trusting her own voice. Look at the world. Look at the spaces where decisions are made, where power is held, where futures are shaped. If they do not reflect you, it is not because you do not belong, it is because too many women have been made to believe they must wait to be chosen. No more. The seat at the table is not reserved for the silent. The microphone does not pass itself to those who whisper. Leadership is not about waiting, it is about stepping forward and saying, I am here. And so, to every woman standing at the edge of doubt, wondering if she is ready, if she is worthy, if she is enough, hear this, you are. You always have been. The world does not change by accident. It changes when women rise. And now it is your turn. Life has never handed women easy road. It has tested them, stretched them, placed walls in their paths, and dared them to stop. But a woman does not break, she bends, she shifts, she finds another way. She is resilience itself, carved from the storm she has weathered, built from the struggle she has endured. Every setback, every rejection, every door slammed in her face is not an end, it is a lesson, a sharpening, a preparation for what comes next. From the moment she takes her first steps, a girl learns that the world is not always kind. She watches as her efforts are overlooked, as her voice is talked over, as her dreams are met with hesitation. She is told to stay in her place, to adjust, to compromise, but deep inside something stronger lies. It is the fire of her foremothers, the unshakable spirit passed down through generations of women who refuse to yield. It is the echo of every woman who has ever been told no and still found a way to turn it into yes. Resilience is not given, it is forged. It is built in the moments when failure seems final, when the weight of expectation presses down, when the world seems intent on keeping her small. And yet she rises again. She rises. Not because she has never known doubt, but because she understands that hers not in avoiding struggle, it is in moving through it. They will say, it is too hard. They will say, why fight? Why push? Why not accept what is given? But a woman who leads does not settle for what is handed to her. She does not lower her gaze in defeat. She does not walk away simply because the road is steep. She knows that every obstacle is a test of her endurance, every challenge a chance to prove not to the world, but to herself that she is unshakable. A leader is not made in moments of ease. She is made in the fire of adversity. She is made when she loses and still finds the courage to try again. She is made when she is knocked down but refuses to stay there. She is made when she turns pain into wisdom, rejection into redirection, doubt into determination. And what a failure! It is not the enemy, it is the teacher. The most powerful women in history did not succeed because they never fell. They succeeded because they never stayed down. They understood that failure is not the end of the road. It is a stepping stone, a rough patch on the path to something greater. A woman who leads does not fear failure because she knows that resilience is not about never falling. It is about always getting back up. There will be times when the weight feels unbearable, when the dream feels out of reach, when the world seems to push back harder than she can push forward. But she was not built to break. She was not given this fire, this drive, this unshakable will for nothing. She stands, she fights, she endures not just for herself, but for every woman who comes after her, for every girl who looks up and sees what is possible. So when the world tells her to quit, she does not listen. When the road is blocked, she finds another way. When fear whispers that she is not strong enough, she remembers resilience is not about never struggling. It is about never surrendering. And she does not surrender. She never has. She never will. The world has long mistaken softness for weakness. It has looked at a woman's ability to feel, to understand, to nurture, and called it a flaw. It has told her to be harder, to be colder, to lead as if she were something she is not. But let it be known now, emotional intelligence is not a weakness. It is the quiet force that moves mountains, the unseen thread that holds communities together, the fire that burns without consuming. A woman walks into a room, and before a single word is spoken, she feels that the tension, the energy, the unspoken truths hanging heavy in the air. She listens not just to voices, but to what is left unsaid. She reads the spaces between words, the shift of eyes, the weight of silence. And because she knows she leads, she does not charge blindly forward, does not command without understanding. She moves with intention, with wisdom, with an awareness that leadership is not about power, it is about people. The greatest leaders are not those who shout the loudest or demand the most. They are those who know how to listen, how to connect, how to inspire others, not through fear, but through trust. And who understands trust better than a woman. She has spent a lifetime navigating expectations, balancing emotions, reading between the lines. She knows that true leadership is not about control, it is about influence, about the ability to lift others while standing tall herself. And yet, the world has tried to convince her otherwise. It has told her that she must choose between strength and compassion, between success and kindness, between power and empathy. But she refuses to choose. She knows that real strength is not in shutting down emotion, but in harnessing it. That real success is not in stepping on others, but in bringing them with her. That real power is not in fear, but in understanding. A woman who leads does not dismiss emotions as distractions. She uses them as tools. She understands that anger can be turned into action, that empathy can be turned into strategy, that intuition can be turned into vision. She sees what others miss, senses what others ignore. And that is why she cannot be overlooked, cannot be dismissed, cannot be underestimated. They will say, she is too sensitive. Let them say it. Sensitivity is not a flaw, it is a gift. It is what allows her to see the pain in another's eyes before they speak it. It is what allows her to sense the hesitation in a trembling voice, to know when to push and when to pause. It is what makes her not just a leader, but a force, a presence, a woman who changes the very air around her. And what of resilience? It is not separate from emotion, it is born from it. It is not cold detachment that allows a woman to rise after every fall, to keep going when the odds are against her. It is passion, it is purpose, it is the deep well of feeling that tells her this matters, that she matters, that what she is building is bigger than herself. So let no woman be fooled into thinking she must harden herself to lead. Let no woman believe that her ability to feel, to connect, to care, makes her any less capable. The world does not need more leaders who rule with an iron fist. It needs more who lead with wisdom, with vision, with heart. And she is that leader. She always has been. For too long, women have been taught to lower their voices, to measure their words, to be careful not to take up too much space. The world has told them to be polite, to be agreeable, to soften the edges of their ambitions so they do not make others uncomfortable. But change does not come from silence. Progress is not born from whispers. A woman who leads does not wait for the world to hand her a microphone. She raises her voice and she roars. She roars for the women who came before her, the ones who fought battles without ever seeing the victory. She roars for the women beside her, the ones still afraid to step forward, still waiting for permission to be heard. She roars for the girls who will follow, the ones watching, learning, wondering if they too are allowed to take up space. She does not speak for the sake of being loud. She speaks because the world will not change unless she does. There will always be those who tell her to be quiet. They will call her too aggressive, too demanding, too much. They will say she is overreacting, that she should wait, that she should find a softer way to say what she means. But a woman who leads does not ask, how can I make them comfortable? She asks, how can I make a difference? She knows that a whisper does not shake the ground, that a careful, hesitant voice does not challenge the status quo, that the world has never been changed by those who are afraid to be heard. The greatest movements in history were not led by those who sat quietly waiting their turn. They were led by those who stood up, who spoke up, who refused to be silenced, no matter how many times they were told to stop. And still she is told that her voice is too emotional, that her passion is too much, that she must calm down to be taken seriously. But she does not calm down. She does not dilute her fire to make it more acceptable. She does not trade her conviction for approval. She understands that leadership is not about making everyone comfortable, it is about making things happen. She does not raise her voice to hear herself speak. She raises it because justice demands it, because equality requires it, because progress is not polite, it is disruptive. It is inconvenient. It is the refusal to accept what is simply because it has always been that way. And what of those who fear her voice? What of those who say she should wait, that change will come in time? She knows better. She knows that change does not come to those who wait, it comes to those who demand it. She knows that every right she has today exists because another woman refused to be quiet. The right to vote, the right to work, the right to leave, none of these were given freely. They were fought for by women who were called too loud, too difficult, too much. A woman who leads does not ask for permission to speak. She does not wait for the world to be ready to listen. She steps forward, she takes the microphone, she makes sure her voice is heard. And when they tell her she is too much, she smiles, she stands taller, she speaks louder. Because she knows when women roar, the world must listen. Confidence is not about knowing all the answers. It is not about having every fact memorized, every outcome predicted, every move planned in perfect precision. Confidence is the unshaken belief that you belong, that you are enough, that the space you stand in is rightfully yours. A woman who leads does not wait until she is certain. She moves forward, knowing that certainty is built along the way. For too long, women have been taught to doubt themselves. They have been told they must be overqualified, over everything before they dare to claim a place at the table. They have watched as others, less prepared, less thoughtful, less capable, step into roles they were too hesitant to take. But hesitation does not serve a leader. It only gives doubt more time to whisper, more time to grow, more time to steal opportunities that were meant to be hers. She has seen it happen. A room full of voices and she holds back. Where she knows the answers, she second guesses. A moment when she could step forward, but she waits, thinking someone else might be more deserving. Confidence is not arrogance. It is not about taking over, speaking over, demanding attention for the sake of being seen. Confidence is knowing deep in her bones that she has every right to be here, that she does not need to apologize for taking up space, that she does not need to shrink to make others comfortable. She has spent years listening to the world tell her to be humble, to be cautious, to be sure before she speaks. But she has also seen the ones who move forward without hesitation, the ones who assume they belong even when they do not. And she realizes now the difference is not always skill. It is not always experience. It is the belief, the quiet, unwavering belief that one is worthy, That belief changes everything. And so she begins to shift. She stops waiting for certainty. She starts stepping into opportunities before she feels completely ready. She starts raising her hand, speaking her mind, making decisions with the knowledge that she is capable of figuring things out as she goes. She understands now that every leader, every great name, every powerful voice once stood where she stands, uncertain, untested, unsure. The only difference is that they step forward anyway. They will question her confidence. They will call her bold, call her fearless, call her anything but what she truly is prepared, capable, worthy. They will ask, who does she think she is? And she will answer, not with words, but with action, with presence, with the undeniable truth that she is here and she is not going anywhere. She understands now that confidence is not given, it is built. Not by waiting, but by doing. Not by watching, but by leading. Not by seeking permission, but by claiming what is already hers. And so she does, she leads, she speaks, she stands tall, not because she has all the answers, but because she knows she belongs. Failure is not the enemy. It is not a mark of shame, not a weight that drags a woman down, not a reason to turn back. Failure is a teacher, the architect, the map maker of success. A woman who leads does not fear failure, she uses it. She does not crumble beneath its weight, she stands taller because of it. She knows that every stumble, every misstep, every door that closes is simply pointing her toward a new direction, a better way, a deeper understanding of her own strength. She has seen what fear of failure does to women. It makes them hesitate. It makes them question their own ability before they even begin. It makes them step back when they should step forward. She has seen brilliant women hold themselves back, not because they lack talent, not because they lack passion, but because they were afraid of making a mistake, of not getting it right the first time, of falling short in a world that rarely gives them second chances. But she has also seen something else. She has seen the women who rise despite it all, the ones who take the risk, who bet on themselves, who refuse to let the fear of failure keep them from trying. And she has learned that those are the women who change the world. She understands now that failure is not the opposite of success, it is a part of it. No woman who has ever led, who has ever built something great, who has ever carved a path where there was none has done so without failing. She knows that failure is not proof that she is not enough. It is proof that she is trying, that she is growing, that she is daring to do what others will not. She knows that the only true failure is not trying at all. And so she shifts. She stops seeing failure as a reason to retreat. She stops letting mistakes define her worth. She stops giving doubt the power to hold her back. Instead, she learns. She adjusts. She moves forward with the knowledge that every great leader, every woman who has ever stood where she stands has failed. And then they have risen. The world will tell her to be careful, to play it safe, to avoid risks, to avoid uncertainty, to avoid the possibility of getting it wrong. But she knows better now. She knows that safety does not build leaders, that playing small does not create change, that real leadership, real impact, real progress requires courage, the courage to fail, the courage to try again, the courage to believe in herself, even when the world does not. And so she leads, not because she has never fallen, but because she has never stayed down. Not because she has always been right, but because she has always been willing to learn. Not because she has never feared failure, but because she has never let that fear stop her. And she never will. No woman walks her path alone. No success, no victory, no breakthrough happens in isolation. A woman who leads knows that true power is not in standing alone at the top, but in lifting others with her, in opening doors, in making sure no woman ever has to fight the same battles alone. She understands that leadership is not about reaching the summit, it is about making sure others can follow. She has seen what happens when women are made to compete. When they are taught that there is only room for one, that power is a scarce thing, that success is a lonely road. She has seen women hold back, afraid to share, afraid to support, afraid that another woman's rise means their own fall. But she knows better. She knows that real power multiplies, that when women stand together, when they uplift each other, when they refuse to see each other as rivals but as allies, something unstoppable happens. She remembers the hands that pulled her forward, the mentor who told her she was capable when she doubted herself, the friend who reminded her of her worth when the world tried to make her forget, the women who showed her that strength is not just in standing tall, it is in making sure others can stand too. And so she does the same. She reaches back. She opens doors. She makes space at the table and pulls up chairs for those who come after her. She understands that leadership is not just about what she achieves, but about the legacy she leaves. A woman who leads does not just break barriers, she makes sure they do not rise again. She does not just climb, she builds ladders. She does not just win, she changes the rules so that winning is not a privilege for the few, but a right for all. And yet she knows the world does not always make this easy. It tells women to compete, to compare, to believe that success is limited and that helping another means losing something themselves. But she refuses to believe in scarcity. She knows that when one woman rises, it clears the way for more. That the strength of one is the strength of many. That when women choose to support instead of compete, to mentor instead of isolate, to build each other up instead of tear each other down, they create something unbreakable. She moves differently now. She no longer sees another woman's success as a threat, but as proof of what is possible. She no longer lets insecurity tell her there is not enough room. She no longer believes the lie that power must be hoarded. Instead, she leads with open hands, with open doors, with the understanding that the true mark of a leader is not in how far she goes alone, but in how many she brings with her. So she lifts as she climbs. She speaks the names of women who are not in the room. She creates opportunities where there were none. She offers her wisdom, her support, her belief, knowing that every woman she lifts will one day do the same for another. And in this way, leadership is not just about her, it becomes something bigger, something lasting, something that will continue long after she is gone. She does not walk alone. She never has. And she never will. The world has tried to define women's leadership in narrow terms to tell them how they should lead, how they should speak, how they should exist in spaces that were never built for them. But a woman who leads does not wait for permission. She does not ask for validation. She steps forward with the full force of her wisdom, her courage, her voice, and her vision. She leads not by becoming someone else, but by embracing exactly who she is, unapologetic, strong, and limitless. She understands that leadership is not about standing alone at the top, but about lifting others, about building something greater than herself, about ensuring that the doors she walks through remain open for those who come after. She does not fear failure because she knows it is a stepping stone. She does not shrink in the face of doubt because she knows her worth. She does not quiet her voice because she understands that change demands to be heard. She leads with intelligence, with resilience, with the power of her emotions and the strength of her convictions. And in doing so, she reshapes the world. She proves that leadership is not defined by gender, but by vision, by determination, by the relentless pursuit of a future where every woman stands without hesitation, without apology, without fear. So to every woman who has ever questioned her place, who has ever doubted her power, stand tall. Speak boldly. Lead with everything you are. The world is waiting for you. Good luck on your journey, and thank you. Hello, everyone. There is a power in calm that the world often overlooks. A quiet strength that sits like a crown upon your head. Imagine waking each day not chased by the chaos of yesterday, nor haunted by the uncertainty of tomorrow, but rooted in a peace so deep that it cannot be stolen. This is not surrender. This is mastery. This is the life where peace is non-negotiable. We live in a world that celebrates noise, a world that measures worth by how loudly we shout, how fast we move, how many battles we win. Yet, there is a throne in stillness, a dignity in patience, and a courage in simply breathing through the storms. To claim this life, you must first claim yourself. You must honor your own heartbeat, your own silence, your own truth. For when you are grounded, the storms pass over your head like clouds, and they do not drench your spirit. The queen's calm is not born of circumstance. It is forged in the fires of challenge, tempered by the trials of hardtack, and polished by the persistence of hope. She does not allow fear to dictate her steps. She does not bargain with anger, envy, or regret. She walks with the quiet assurance that life will bend to no one except those who carry peace within themselves. And when she speaks, her words are not sharp to wound, but soft to heal, strong to uplift, and unwavering to inspire. There will be days when the world demands your fury, when your patience is tested, when your spirit aches. On those days, remember the throne of calm that is yours to sit upon. Do not give it away to the noise. Do not exchange it for approval, for vengeance, or for recognition. Let your calm be louder than the chaos, your serenity deeper than the turmoil, your resolve steadier than the wind. For peace is not a reward. It is a right. It is a declaration. And it is non-negotiable. So live boldly, but move softly. Speak truth, but speak gently. Stand tall, but let your roots dig into the soil of your own soul. Nurture the garden of your mind, the sanctuary of your heart, and the quiet dignity of your presence. Let the world marvel at the way you rise without trembling, the way you shine without burning, the way you love without losing yourself. Peace is power, and calm is the crown every queen wears. It is not something given lightly, nor is it something borrowed from fleeting moments of comfort. True calm comes from a deep knowing, a knowing that your worth does not rise and fall with the noise around you. When a queen claims her calm, she claims her throne. She claims the authority over her own mind, her own emotions, and her own life. In a world that often rewards haste and chaos, choosing to walk through life with quiet strength is an act of courage, a declaration that your inner world is sacred and untouchable. To wear calm as a crown is to understand that power does not always roar. It often whispers, it listens before it speaks. It moves deliberately, intentionally, with awareness of every step. When you are calm, your actions are rooted in wisdom, not reaction. You become the eye of the storm, not because the storm does not exist, but because you have cultivated the ability to remain steady while everything around you swirls. The queen's calm is unshakable because it is nurtured daily through mindfulness, reflection, and the conscious decision to prioritize peace over panic. Peace is a form of power that cannot be taken from you unless you surrender it. When you are calm, your energy is yours. You are not scattered by the demands of others or the urgency of the world. You are not bound by expectations that do not align with your truth. Instead, you hold yourself like a sovereign, recognizing that your calm is a resource, a force, and a shield. Others may not understand why you do not react, why you do not argue, why you do not chase every conflict. They may mistake your serenity for passivity, but a queen knows better. Calm is action in its highest form. It is a quiet authority that shapes outcomes, influences hearts, and commands respect without a single shout. When you embrace calm as your crown, you also embrace patience. You learn that timing is everything and that not every battle must be fought. You discern which moments require energy and which moments require stillness. This discernment is a superpower because it allows you to conserve your strength for what truly matters. Every queen who walks with peace understands that haste leads to mistakes, that reaction leads to regret, and that chaos consumes what could otherwise be cultivated with care. By choosing calm, she chooses clarity over confusion, wisdom over impulse, and power over powerlessness. Calm is also a magnet for harmony. When you carry serenity, you influence the spaces you inhabit. People are drawn to your steadiness, your ability to listen without judgment, your refusal to be pulled into unnecessary drama. You inspire without demanding, lead without forcing, and guide without controlling. This is the secret strength of calm. It multiplies itself. The more you practice it, the more it radiates outward, creating a ripple effect that strengthens your relationships, your decisions, and the environment around you. A queen's calm is never isolated. It touches everyone, shaping the world quietly but profoundly. Yet, calm does not mean avoidance. It does not mean ignoring injustice, suppressing emotion, or denying the storms within. Rather, it means facing them with grace. A queen who wears calm as her crown does not pretend that life is always gentle. She acknowledges pain, embraces challenge, and confronts difficulty with composure. Calm gives her the clarity to act with purpose, to respond instead of reacting, and to transform trials into triumphs. It allows her to maintain dignity when others crumble, to speak truth when others shout, and to remain steadfast when the world tests her limits. To cultivate calm, one must nurture the inner life. Meditation, reflection, journaling, deep breathing, and conscious self-care are not indulgences. They are the training ground of power. A queen invests in her mind and spirit daily, knowing that the crown of calm is only as strong as the foundation beneath it. She avoids toxicity, sets boundaries, and honors her own pace. Every choice she makes is filtered through the lens of preserving her serenity, because she knows that once calm is lost, so too is her ability to lead, to create, and to thrive. Peace is power, and calm is the crown every queen wears. It is a choice made moment by moment, a practice that requires vigilance, patience, and love for oneself. When you claim this crown, you claim your sovereignty. You declare that no chaos, no criticism, and no storm will unseat you. You live fully, act wisely, and inspire profoundly. In a world that tries to pull you into frenzy, remember that your calm is your strength, your shield, and your throne. It is yours to wear with pride, and it is yours to defend without apology. Guard your inner sanctuary. Do not let chaos steal your serenity. This is a principle that every queen knows, though the world may not always respect it. Life has a way of bombarding us with noise, distraction, and unrest. It offers endless demands, pulls us in multiple directions, and tests the limits of our patience and resilience. Yet, amidst all this clamor, there exists a sacred space within each of us, a quiet room of the heart and mind where peace resides. Protecting this sanctuary is not optional, it is essential. To allow it to be breached is to give away your power, to trade your calm for the chaos of the outside world. Every queen understands that her inner sanctuary is the seat of her strength. It is here that she recharges, reflects, and renews. It is here that clarity grows, decisions are made, and wisdom flourishes. When you guard this space, you are able to see the world clearly without being consumed by it. You can act with purpose rather than reaction. You can speak with intention rather than out of fear or anger. This sanctuary is your compass, your home, and your crown all in one. To protect it is to honor your life, your spirit, and your potential. Chaos will always knock at the door. It comes in the form of demanding voices, unforeseen crises, unkind words, and relentless pressure. It tempts you to respond hastily, to let the noise dictate your emotions, and to forget that you are the keeper of your own peace. But the queen does not yield. She does not allow the swirling storm outside to find purchase inside. She closes the doors of her inner world to what does not serve her, to what diminishes her, and to what distracts from her purpose. She understands that control over her internal state is more powerful than control over the world around her. For the world may change, but her sanctuary is hers to preserve. To guard your sanctuary, you must be intentional with your boundaries. This is not a call for isolation, but for discernment. Choose what enters your mind and heart carefully. Protect your energy as fiercely as you protect your crown. Avoid conversations that drain you, people who unsettle you, and habits that erode your calm. Let your yeses be meaningful and your nods be firm. In this careful curation, you are not selfish, you are sovereign. You are declaring to the universe that your peace is sacred and cannot be bargained away. The queen knows that boundaries are not walls. They are bridges to a life lived with dignity, respect, and purpose. The inner sanctuary is also a garden. It requires tending, nourishment, and care. Moments of stillness, meditation, reflection, and gratitude are the sunlight that allows it to flourish. Reading, listening to uplifting voices, engaging in creativity, and cultivating positive thoughts are the water and soil that sustain it. Just as a garden can be overrun by weeds if left unattended, so too can the mind and heart become overrun by negativity if not nurtured. By committing to this daily care, you strengthen your ability to remain unshaken when life demands it. You fortify your defenses against the chaos outside, and you ensure that your calm remains not a fragile gift but a lasting inheritance. When you guard your sanctuary, you also gain perspective. You learn that not every storm needs to be faced with fury, not every conflict needs engagement, and not every voice deserves your response. You observe, you listen, and you act from wisdom rather than impulse. The chaos outside loses its power over you because you no longer allow it to define your mood, your choices, or your vision. You become the calm center in every room, the steady hand in every challenge, and the voice of reason in every confusion. This is the power of guarding your inner sanctuary. It transforms you from a participant in chaos to a master of your own life. It is not always easy. Life tests your boundaries, challenges your patience, and tempts you to surrender your peace. But a queen knows that every time she preserves her sanctuary, she strengthens her sovereignty. Every moment of calm maintained is a victory over distraction, over fear, over external pressure. Every day spent protecting her inner space is a testament to her dedication to living a life where peace is non-negotiable. Guard your inner sanctuary. It is the throne upon which your calm sits. Protect it with vigilance, nurture it with love, and honor it with every choice you make. For when your sanctuary is intact, chaos cannot touch you, storms cannot sway you, and the world must reckon with the quiet, unwavering power of a queen at peace. Strength is silent, patience is mighty, and presence is profound. These are the qualities that define a queen who walks through life with calm as her crown. True strength does not announce itself with noise or demand recognition. It is quiet, steady, and unwavering. It resides in the ability to face adversity without losing composure, to navigate the storms of life with dignity, and to act from a place of clarity rather than reaction. A queen understands that strength is not measured by how loudly she can assert herself, but by how firmly she can remain grounded in her own truth while the world rages around her. Patience is the companion of strength. It is not the passive waiting that the world often confuses it with. It is a powerful, deliberate restraint, the wisdom to know that some things unfold in their own time. Patience allows a queen to see beyond immediate frustrations, to anticipate outcomes, and to respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. In a culture that glorifies haste and instant gratification, choosing patience is a radical act. It is an assertion that her mind is sovereign, that her choices are guided by wisdom, and that she will not be hurried into decisions that do not serve her highest purpose. Patience transforms waiting into a space of power, reflection, and preparation. Presence, too, is an extraordinary force. To be present is to be fully alive in each moment, to listen deeply, to observe keenly, and to engage authentically. A queen's presence is profound because it carries intention, awareness, and respect for herself and others. She does not scatter her energy in distractions or let her mind drift to fears of the past or anxieties about the future. Instead, She stands fully in the moment, grounded in her center, aware of her environment, and responsive rather than reactive. Presence magnifies every action she takes. It turns ordinary conversations into meaningful connections and everyday decisions into transformative choices. When strength, patience, and presence converge, they create a force that cannot be shaken. The queen who embodies these qualities moves through life like the calm at the center of a storm. She does not demand recognition. Her energy commands respect naturally. People are drawn to her steadiness, her unwavering focus, and the quiet authority she carries without need for proclamation. Challenges that would unsettle others simply pass around her because she is anchored in these core virtues. She is unhurried, unafraid, and unyielding in her commitment to a life rooted in peace. This combination of qualities also brings clarity. Strength allows her to face difficult truths without flinching. Patience provides the lens to understand the broader picture, to see beyond immediate discomfort and delay gratification in service of long-term growth. Presence ensures that she engages with life authentically and fully, noticing details that might escape the distracted and the hurried. With these virtues, a queen makes choices not out of fear, anger, or obligation, but out of deliberate alignment with her values and vision. Every decision is an extension of her inner calm, every action a reflection of her wisdom, and every interaction a testament to her sovereignty. It is important to remember that cultivating these qualities requires practice and intention. Strength is built not by avoiding difficulties, but by facing them with courage and composure. Patience is developed not by ignoring life's demands, but by learning to respond with discernment and grace. Presence is honed not by withdrawing from the world, but by immersing oneself fully, mind and heart, in the moment at hand. A queen who wishes to live a life where peace is non-negotiable invests in these virtues daily, knowing that they are the pillars that uphold her calm and power. Moreover, strength, patience, and presence are not solitary gifts. They affect those around her. Others feel the impact of her quiet power, her deliberate restraint, and her attentive awareness. Her calm becomes contagious. Her steadiness inspires confidence. Her mindful engagement encourages others to rise above panic and haste. A queen's calm does not exist in isolation. It radiates outward, shaping environments, guiding relationships, and influencing the world with subtle but undeniable force. Strength is silent, patience is mighty, and presence is profound. Together, they create the foundation upon which peace becomes non-negotiable. They allow a queen to live fully, act wisely, and navigate the inevitable storms of life without losing herself. When these virtues are cultivated and honored, calm is not a fragile possession, but an enduring throne from which she governs her life with grace, dignity, and unwavering authority. These are the qualities that make a life unshakable and a peace unstoppable. Calm is not weakness. It is mastery over fear and impulse. This is a truth that every queen who walks through life with serenity understands. The world often confuses calm with passivity or submission, but the reality is far from it. To remain composed in the face of chaos, to steady yourself when storms rage around you, to breathe deeply while others react in haste. This is strength. True mastery lies in the ability to govern your emotions rather than be governed by them, to act with intention rather than reaction, and to preserve your inner sanctuary even when the world demands surrender. Mastery begins with awareness. A queen observes her thoughts, feelings, and impulses without judgment. She knows that every moment of agitation, fear, or frustration is an opportunity to practice control. She recognizes the triggers that threaten her peace and meets them with mindful response rather than immediate reaction. By doing so, she builds resilience and fortitude, transforming potential disruption into a display of quiet authority. Calm is not the absence of challenge, It is the ability to face challenge with clarity, courage, and composure. Fear is one of the greatest tests of calm. It seeks to paralyze, to push you into rash decisions, and to make the world appear larger and more threatening than it is. A queen acknowledges fear without surrendering to it. She examines it, names it, and allows it to guide her without letting it control her. In mastering fear, she discovers the strength within herself, the courage to act when necessary, and the wisdom to know when patience is required. Fear becomes not an enemy, but a teacher, revealing the depths of her inner power and the expansiveness of her capacity to endure. Impulse is another arena where calm demonstrates mastery. The world rewards speed, reactivity, and sometimes aggression, but a queen knows that not every impulse serves her highest purpose. She pauses before speaking, reflects before acting, and considers the long-term impact of her choices. This pause, this moment of reflection, is not hesitation, it is strategic strength. It ensures that her actions align with her values and that her responses are measured, purposeful, and dignified. Through the mastery of impulse, she conserves her energy, protects her peace, and ensures that her influence is steady rather than erratic. Calm also strengthens perception. When you are composed, your mind is clear, your vision is unobstructed, and your judgment is accurate. A queen who embodies calm sees situations for what they truly are, rather than through the distortion of panic or anger. She can anticipate consequences, navigate complexity, and respond to life's demands with intelligence and grace. This clarity of mind is a hallmark of mastery, allowing her to act decisively and effectively while others flounder in confusion and reaction. Practicing calm requires discipline and intention. It is cultivated through mindfulness, reflection, and consistent self-awareness. A queen invests time in observing her inner landscape, tending to her thoughts and emotions, and aligning herself with her highest principles. She does not rely on external validation or circumstances to maintain her serenity. Instead, she fortifies her inner life daily, knowing that true calm is born from preparation, understanding, and consistent practice. It is a skill, a choice, and a commitment to self-mastery that grows stronger with every challenge faced. The power of calm extends beyond the self. When a queen embodies serenity, she influences the environment around her. Others are drawn to her steadiness, respect her composure, and are inspired by her measured responses. She shapes conversations, decisions, and outcomes through the quiet strength of her presence. Calm becomes contagious, and her mastery over fear and impulse creates a ripple effect that stabilizes the spaces she inhabits. It is a force both subtle and profound, shaping life in ways that loud action alone cannot achieve. Calm is not weakness, it is mastery over fear and impulse. It is the quiet authority that allows a queen to navigate life with dignity, resilience, and wisdom. It is the crown she wears without need for proclamation, the throne she occupies in the center of every storm, and the declaration that some things, especially peace, are non-negotiable. Mastery of self is the greatest power one can claim. Choose your battles wisely. Not everything deserves your energy. This is a lesson that the queen who walks in calm knows well. Life is full of voices, distractions, and provocations. The world will constantly demand your attention, pull you into conflict, and test your resolve. Yet, to respond to every challenge, to fight every argument, and to engage in every debate is to give away your power. Not every storm requires your presence. Not every voice deserves a reply. Not every fight is yours to fight. A queen understands that energy is precious, and once it is spent, it cannot be reclaimed. Choosing your battles wisely begins with awareness. It requires seeing clearly what matters and what does not. It is the ability to distinguish between temporary discomfort and long-term consequences, between empty noise and meaningful cause. The queen learns to pause before reacting, to observe before responding, and to measure the weight of every action she takes. In a world that celebrates immediate reaction and impulsive confrontation, this restraint is an act of supreme strength. It is a refusal to be swept into chaos by those who would pull her from her peace. Energy is the currency of a calm life. Every moment spent in unnecessary struggle is energy lost that could be invested in growth, creativity, and meaningful connection. A queen knows that when she chooses wisely, she channels her efforts where they will bear fruit. She does not expend herself on arguments that yield nothing, on resentment that corrodes the spirit, or on judgments that serve no purpose. Instead, she invests her attention in endeavors that align with her values, in relationships that nourish her soul, and in actions that advance her vision. This selectivity is not indifference, it is mastery. It is the art of living intentionally, with discernment and grace. Choosing battles wisely also means recognizing the power of silence. There is strength in holding your tongue when words would only inflame. There is courage in stepping back when the world expects confrontation. A queen knows that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Her calm does not depend on proving herself to others or winning every argument. It depends on maintaining sovereignty over her own mind, preserving her peace, and protecting her inner sanctuary. In this space, she is untouchable by trivial conflicts and immune to unnecessary drama. Patience and presence work hand in hand with discernment. When a queen chooses her battles, she does so with patience. Understanding that time often reveals the true importance of a conflict. She does so with presence, fully aware of the moment, the stakes, and her own emotional state. This combination allows her to act decisively when action is required and to withdraw gracefully when it is not. She is not reactive, she is deliberate. She does not fight for attention, approval, or validation. She fights for principles, values, and causes that truly matter, and she does so with the quiet authority of one who knows her worth and her limits. Choosing battles wisely also involves letting go of control. A queen knows that she cannot change everyone, correct every injustice, or influence every outcome. Some things are beyond her reach, and attempting to control them only disrupts her calm. By focusing her energy on what she can influence, she maximizes her impact while preserving her peace. She releases what does not serve her, forgives what cannot be changed, and steps away from conflicts that do not align with her purpose. This discernment is the essence of sovereignty, the essence of a life where peace is non-negotiable. The world may not always understand her choices. It may call her indifferent, detached, or distant. Yet she knows that energy wasted on trivial battles diminishes her ability to stand strong in those that truly matter. Her calm is not compromised by the expectations of others. Her serenity is not dictated by the chaos surrounding her. She acts with intention, responds with wisdom, and preserves her strength for the moments that define her life, her values, and her legacy. Choose your battles wisely. It is not a concession, but a declaration. It is the refusal to be pulled into triviality, the refusal to surrender your energy to what is fleeting, and the affirmation that your calm, your strength, and your peace are worth protecting. When you do this, every action you take becomes purposeful, every word you speak carries weight, and every moment of serenity becomes unshakable. Energy is precious, and your peace is priceless. Cultivate your mind, heart, and spirit like a royal garden. A queen who walks in calm understands that her inner world must be tended with care, intention, and love. Just as a garden cannot thrive without sunlight, water, and nourishment, the mind, heart, and spirit require consistent attention, reflection, and cultivation. To neglect them is to leave the doors open to chaos, negativity, and distraction. To cultivate them is to build a fortress of serenity that no storm can breach, a place where peace is not optional but inevitable. The mind is the soil of this garden. What you plant, nurture, and feed determines what grows. A queen knows that her thoughts shape her reality. She does not allow fear, doubt, or resentment to take root. She chooses wisdom, clarity, and vision as the seeds she cultivates. She reads, reflects, and learns, for knowledge strengthens her foundation and sharpens her insight. She meditates, ponders, and questions, tending to her mind with the same diligence a gardener tends to every delicate sprout. When the mind is healthy, decisions are made with precision, clarity, and calm. It is the first step in creating a life where peace is non-negotiable. The heart is the water that nourishes the garden. It is through the heart that we experience empathy, love, and compassion. A queen waters her heart with kindness, gratitude, and understanding. She forgives not for others, but for herself, knowing that holding on to anger or resentment poisons the soil of her being. She embraces joy, celebrates small victories, and cultivates connection with those who uplift rather than drain her. The heart is resilient, but it thrives only when nurtured. By tending to her emotional life, a queen ensures that her calm remains deep, her presence remains steady, and her strength remains unshakable. The spirit is the sunlight that allows this garden to flourish. It is the core of her being, the source of her wisdom, her intuition, and her inner guidance. A queen listens to her spirit daily. She honors it with rituals, reflection, and quiet moments that reconnect her to her purpose. She trusts it to lead her in times of uncertainty, to illuminate the path when decisions are complex, and to sustain her through trials. The spirit cannot be neglected or forced. It requires patience, attention, and reverence. By cultivating her spirit, she ensures that her peace is rooted in something eternal, something unmovable, and something beyond the chaos of the world. Cultivating the mind, heart, and spirit is not a one-time act. It is a daily practice, a devotion to oneself that strengthens resilience, wisdom, and calm. Just as weeds can grow if a garden is neglected, negativity, doubt, and distraction will invade if the inner life is ignored. A queen understands that consistent attention to her inner world prevents chaos from taking hold. She sets aside time to reflect, to recharge, and to realign with her values. She honors herself as the caretaker of this sacred space, knowing that what flourishes within her becomes the energy she brings into the world. This cultivation also requires boundaries. A garden cannot thrive if it is trampled or flooded. Similarly, a queen protects her inner world from toxic influences, draining relationships, and unnecessary distractions. She does not allow criticism, envy, or negativity to take root in her mind or heart. She chooses her company wisely, embraces experiences that enrich her, and rejects anything that diminishes her peace. Her calm is the product of careful curation, mindful tending, and unwavering commitment to her well-being. When the mind, heart, and spirit are cultivated, the queen becomes a beacon of calm and strength. She moves through life with intention, speaks with wisdom, and acts with clarity. Her presence radiates stability, her words carry weight, and her actions reflect a life rooted in serenity. The garden she tends within herself becomes the source of her influence, her decisions, and her resilience. It is the reason she can navigate storms without losing herself, engage with the world without being consumed, and maintain a life where peace is non-negotiable. Cultivate your inner garden daily. Feed your mind with knowledge, water your heart with compassion, and shine sunlight on your spirit with reflection and connection. In doing so, you build a life of lasting calm, unshakable strength, and quiet authority. Your inner garden is your legacy, and your peace is its harvest. Living peacefully is a declaration that some things are non-negotiable. It is the quiet, unwavering statement that no chaos, no pressure, no distraction will dictate the terms of your life. A queen who walks in calm understands that peace is not a luxury. It is not something to be granted by circumstance or dependent on the behavior of others. It is a choice, a commitment, and a boundary that she sets and refuses to compromise. To live peacefully in a world that constantly demands attention, reaction, and compliance is an act of courage. It is an assertion of sovereignty over her mind, her heart, and her spirit. Peace begins with self-respect. A queen knows that her tranquility is tied to how she honors herself. She does not allow herself to be pulled into drama, drained by negativity, or consumed by conflict that serves no higher purpose. She understands that maintaining her calm is not a concession to weakness, but a testament to strength. By choosing serenity over agitation, she models for herself and others what it means to value one's own well-being above the chaos of the world. Peace becomes her standard, her principle, and her shield. Living peacefully also requires discernment. It requires knowing what deserves engagement and what does not. The queen does not respond to every provocation, does not react to every criticism, and does not carry every burden. She chooses her energy carefully and invests it only where it will have meaningful impact. This discernment is a form of wisdom. It allows her to act with clarity, to maintain stability amidst turbulence, and to focus on what truly matters. By living peacefully, she demonstrates that power is not always loud or confrontational. Sometimes power is quiet, deliberate, and unshakable. The practice of peaceful living is also rooted in presence. To live in peace is to be fully aware of the moment, to engage with life intentionally, and to respond rather than react. A queen stands firmly in her center, attentive to her surroundings, mindful of her emotions, and deliberate in her choices. She does not allow past regrets or future anxieties to invade her now. She cultivates a steady, present focus that allows her to navigate challenges with grace and clarity. Presence amplifies her calm, giving her the ability to act with precision and the confidence to remain unshaken by distraction. Boundaries are essential to a life where peace is non-negotiable. A queen protects her time, energy, and spirit from intrusion. She knows when to say no, when to step back, and when to disengage from what does not serve her well-being. These boundaries are not walls of isolation. They are declarations of respect for herself and for the life she is committed to creating. By holding firm to them, she ensures that her calm is not compromised and that her decisions are guided by clarity rather than pressure. Boundaries allow her peace to flourish. Even when the world around her is chaotic or demanding, living peacefully also requires forgiveness and release. Holding on to anger, resentment, or grudges only disturbs the inner sanctuary. A queen understands that peace is strengthened when she lets go of what cannot be changed, releases what is beyond her control, and forgives not for the sake of others but for herself. Forgiveness frees her heart and clears space for serenity, wisdom, and compassion. By choosing to release negativity, she ensures that her calm remains unshakable and that her energy is preserved for what truly matters. Finally, a life lived in peace is a life of influence. Others are drawn to calm, stability, and composure. A queen who embodies peace becomes a beacon for those around her. Her presence encourages steadiness, her decisions inspire confidence, and her calm creates an environment where growth, creativity, and connection can flourish. Living peacefully does not isolate her from the world. It empowers her to engage with it from a place of strength and clarity. Her serenity is not passive. It is active, deliberate, and transformative. Living peacefully is the ultimate declaration that peace is non-negotiable. It is the embodiment of strength, wisdom, and sovereignty in every thought, word, and action. When a queen commits to this life, she creates a world where calm is her standard, Clarity is her compass, and serenity is her crown. As we reach the close of this journey, remember that the life of a queen is not defined by the chaos around her, but by the calm she carries within. Peace is her crown, strength her quiet authority, patience her guiding force, and discernment her compass. By guarding her sanctuary, cultivating her mind, heart, and spirit, choosing her battles wisely, and mastering fear and impulse, she creates a life where serenity is non-negotiable. Each step she takes, each decision she makes, and each breath she holds in calm is a declaration of her sovereignty over herself and her world. This is more than a call to survive. It is an invitation to thrive, to rise above the noise, to walk with dignity, to love fiercely yet gently, and to hold steadfast to the truth that your peace is your power. When you live this way, you not only transform your own life, but inspire those around you to seek calm, embrace patience, and recognize the strength that lies in serenity. Let every choice you make, every thought you nurture, and every action you take be a reflection of the queen within, the one who knows that peace is a right, not a privilege, and that calm is a crown you wear with pride. So step forward with courage, walk with grace, and live with the unwavering knowledge that your calm is priceless and your life is a testament to the power of inner peace. May your journey be filled with strength, your days with serenity, and your heart with joy. Good luck on your path, and thank you for allowing yourself to embrace the queen within. Listen closely. There is a sound in this world that speaks louder than thunder, though it makes no noise at all. It is the sound of silence. Silence does not come to us wrapped in celebration. It often arrives heavy and uncertain, carrying both pain and promise. Yet within it lies a deep and mighty strength, the kind that does not need to shout to be heard, the kind that does not need to push to be felt. When we think of forgiveness and the fragile work of rebuilding trust, silence becomes the secret door that opens to both healing and hope. Forgiveness is not a quick word we throw into the air. It is not a simple nod of the head or a forced smile to cover a wound. Forgiveness is a choice that often begins in silence. When the heart is broken and the spirit feels torn, silence gives us the courage to sit with our own hurt. It allows us to breathe before we speak, to understand before we accuse, to mend before we destroy. Without that quiet pause, we rush into words that deepen the wound instead of tending it. In silence, we discover the truth of our own soul. We learn what must be released and what must be carried forward. We learn that forgiveness is not weakness, but a grand declaration that pain will not master us. In those quiet hours, we find the bravery to say, I will not let anger be my only language. I will not let bitterness have the last word. Silence teaches us to let go without losing ourselves. And then comes the work of rebuilding trust. Trust is like a delicate glass. Once it shatters, the pieces cut deep, and it takes steady hands to bring them back together. Words alone cannot glue them. Promises alone cannot fix them. What rebuilds trust is the patience that grows in silence. It is the consistency of actions that whisper without fanfare. It is the steady walk of time, step by step without the need for applause. Silence gives room for proof. In the quiet, one sees if actions match the promises spoken. In the quiet, one feels if the heart is sincere. It is not noise that makes trust return, it is presence. It is showing up day after day, not with shouts, but with stillness that says, I am here and I mean to stay. There is a beauty in silence when it is shared between people who are learning to forgive. A silence that no longer feels cold, but begins to feel safe. It becomes a silence of peace where wounds begin to close and hope begins to breathe again. In that silence, hearts speak without words, saying, I see you, I understand you, I am willing to walk forward with you. There are moments in life when words only sharpen the wound, when explanations, arguments, or apologies fall short of reaching the depth of hurt that has been carried. In such moments, silence becomes not an emptiness but a shelter. When we are hurt, our first instinct is often to speak quickly, to defend ourselves, or to demand an answer. But silence allows space for wounds to breathe before words can heal. It gives both the broken heart and the trembling spirit the chance to simply exist without pressure, without judgment, without the need to cover the rawness of pain. In that quiet space, there is room to recognize what has truly been lost. Silence does not rush us toward closure. It does not demand that we put on a brave face before we are ready. It allows the wound to be acknowledged in its fullness, and acknowledgement is the first step to healing. When we sit in silence, we give ourselves permission to feel the ache of betrayal, the sting of disappointment, the sorrow of love that has been bruised. In doing so, we begin to understand what we need to release and what we wish to protect. Words often come heavy with defense or blame, and when spoken too soon, they can deepen divisions. Silence protects us from saying what cannot be unsaid. It shields us from making wounds deeper with sharp responses born of anger. More importantly, silence gives us time to reflect, to sort through our emotions, and to find meaning in what has happened. It allows us to step away from the heat of reaction and into the cool clarity of understanding. In that clarity, forgiveness begins to stir. Not forgiveness that excuses wrong, but forgiveness that says, I will not let this wound define my spirit. When silence enters, it creates a pause, and that pause is powerful. It is within that pause that one heart can begin to hear the other without interruption. It is within that pause that a person can gather enough patience to truly see the weight of their actions. Silence carries more truth than a flood of words because it asks us to notice what lies beneath, the feelings that cannot always be spoken aloud. The absence of sound allows both sides to breathe, to gather strength, and to consider the possibility of moving forward. Silence does not erase pain, but it gives it space to be transformed. Just as a wound must be uncovered to heal, the spirit must be quieted to find its way back to peace. In that stillness, we learn that forgiveness is not hurried. It is not demanded. It is chosen when the heart feels safe enough to open again. And that safety is often born in silence. When someone honors the silence of another's pain, they are saying, I see your wound, and I will not trample on it with careless words. That honor becomes the beginning of trust's slow return. Trust, once broken, cannot be glued together by noise. It is built again in the quiet assurance that space will be respected, that healing will not be rushed, that wounds will not be minimized. Silence becomes proof of patience. It becomes the language of care when words cannot yet bridge the distance. In this way, silence not only helps wounds breathe, it helps relationships breathe. It opens a window where bitterness can begin to leave and where light can begin to enter. So let us not fear the silence that follows hurt. Let us not rush to fill it with explanations that may only bruise more deeply. Instead, let us step into it with reverence, with patience, with the understanding that silence is not absence but presence. It is the presence of reflection, of respect, of hope waiting quietly to be born. In that sacred stillness, wounds breathe, hearts soften, and the path to forgiveness and trust slowly unfolds. Forgiveness is not something that comes dressed in ease or comfort. It is not handed to us like a gift we can unwrap without thought or cost. Forgiveness begins in the quiet courage to release bitterness, and that courage rarely arrives with applause. More often, it arrives in stillness, in moments when the heart wrestles with pain and the spirit questions its own strength. Bitterness can feel like armor, a shield we believe will protect us from being wounded again. Yet the truth is bitterness does not shield, it poisons. It lingers in the soul like a heavy stone, weighing down every step forward. Forgiveness calls us to lay that stone down, and silence gives us the space to decide we are ready to do so. When we are wronged, bitterness often feels like the most natural response. It rises up in us like fire, giving us the illusion of power. It tells us we are strong because we are holding on to the memory of what was done. But holding on does not make us strong, it keeps us bound. To forgive does not mean to erase what happened, nor does it mean to excuse the wrong. Forgiveness means choosing to no longer let bitterness be the ruler of our thoughts and the master of our days. It is a brave act of reclaiming peace, not for the one who hurt us, but for ourselves. In silence, that bravery begins to grow. The stillness allows us to face the anger without letting it spill into every conversation. Silence offers us a mirror, reflecting the truth that we cannot heal, while bitterness has a grip on our hearts. It is in those quiet moments that we begin to hear the small but steady voice inside saying you deserve freedom more than you deserve revenge. Forgiveness is born in that whisper. Bitterness thrives in noise. It thrives in arguments replayed in our minds, in words we wish we had shouted, in the endless retelling of how we were wronged. But when we step into silence, bitterness loses its stage. It has nowhere to echo, nowhere to feed. Slowly, its fire begins to fade. What rises in its place is the possibility of peace. Peace is gentle, but it is not weak. It takes more strength to unclench a fist than to keep it closed. It takes more courage to release bitterness than to hold it close. Silence gives us that strength. It gathers our scattered emotions and helps us choose release over resentment. Forgiveness is not a single moment, but a process. It may need to be chosen again and again. Silence supports that process. Each time bitterness tries to creep back in, silence allows us to pause and remember our choice. Each time anger stirs, silence invites us to breathe before we speak, to listen before we accuse, to release before we lash out. In this way, silence becomes the steady companion of forgiveness, holding us upright when the weight of pain tries to bend us down. And when forgiveness finally settles into our hearts, the chains of bitterness fall away. We begin to see that letting go was not surrender, but victory. We see that by releasing the bitterness, we have opened the door to new trust, to new love, to new beginnings. The courage that started in silence has led us into freedom, and that freedom makes room for the rebuilding of what was broken. So let us remember that the path to forgiveness does not begin with a grand declaration, but with a quiet choice. It begins in the stillness where we find the bravery to say, I will not let bitterness live here anymore. In that silence, the heart is freed, and the journey toward healing becomes possible. Anger is a flame that rises quickly. It leaps high, it crackles, and it demands attention. In the moment when we feel betrayed or wounded, anger can seem like the only language we know. It rushes to our lips, it hardens our voice, it pushes us to say things we later wish we could pull back. Yet anger, though natural, can cloud our vision. It blinds us to the truth of others and even to the truth within ourselves. This is why silence is such a gift. Silence transforms anger into understanding and clarity. It gives the fire no wood to burn, no air to spread, and slowly that flame begins to settle. When we choose silence in the middle of anger, we are not choosing weakness. We are choosing wisdom. We are saying that our peace matters more than proving a point. We are saying that our dignity matters more than raising our voice. In that pause, we allow our thoughts to settle like dust after a storm. What once felt unbearable begins to soften. What once felt impossible to forgive begins to feel like a challenge we can carry. Anger thrives on speed, but understanding is born in patience, and patience is nurtured in silence. It is within silence that we begin to ask ourselves the deeper questions. Why am I hurt? What do I truly need? What am I afraid of losing? These questions cannot be answered in the noise of shouting or in the heat of argument. They can only be answered when the heart grows still enough to listen. Silence does not erase anger, but it guides it into shape, transforming it into insight. Instead of lashing out, we begin to see patterns. Instead of accusing, we begin to see humanity. And with that shift comes clarity, the kind that leads to forgiveness and makes space for trust to be rebuilt. Silence also teaches us that anger is not always directed where it belongs. Sometimes we aim it outward when it is really born from our own fears, our own insecurities, our own unspoken hopes. Silence lets us separate what belongs to us and what belongs to the other. It allows us to release the burden of misplaced blame and to approach the other person not as an enemy, but as a fellow soul who has stumbled. With that recognition, we soften, and our anger becomes an invitation to deeper understanding rather than a barrier. Trust cannot grow in the soil of constant anger. It withers under sharp words and hasty accusations. But when silence is allowed to stand between two hearts, it becomes a bridge. It holds space where anger could have destroyed and instead creates the possibility for rebuilding. In that space, actions can be seen clearly. Intentions can be felt honestly. Promises can be weighed without the distortion of heated emotion. Silence becomes the ground where trust has a chance to root itself again. It is not easy to stay silent when anger burns within us. It feels unnatural, even painful, to hold back words when our hearts are pounding. Yet it is in this restraint that strength is revealed. True strength is not in the shouting, but in the stillness. True strength is not in the explosion, but in the ability to hold fire in your hands without letting it scorch everything around you. Silence gives us that strength. It teaches us that we are not slaves to anger, but masters of our own response. And when anger is transformed into understanding, something beautiful happens. The person we once saw only as the source of our pain becomes human again. Their flaws, their regrets, their own struggles come into view. We begin to see not just what they did, but also why they may have done it. And in that vision, forgiveness finds its doorway. Not a forgiveness that ignores the hurt, but a forgiveness that understands the hurt and chooses to rise above it. So when anger knocks at the door of your heart, invite silence to answer. Let silence cool the flame. Let it carve out the space where clarity can live. For it is through silence that anger loses its power, and it is through silence that trust and forgiveness take their first breath once more. Trust, once fractured, is not repaired by promises shouted in the air or by words repeated without weight. It is not healed by loud declarations or grand speeches. Trust is rebuilt not by noise, but by consistent, quiet actions. It is a patient work, like planting seeds in the ground and tending them day after day, knowing that growth is slow but certain. In silence, we begin to see whether someone's words align with their choices, whether their intentions are steady or fleeting. It is not the noise of apologies that restores trust, but the calm evidence of change lived out with constancy. When someone has been hurt, they do not search for extravagant gestures. They search for steady presence. They watch closely not what is spoken, but what is done. A person can say, "I will be better," but it is the quiet act of being better that carries truth. In the absence of noise, actions stand out more clearly. Silence strips away excuses and explanations, leaving only what is real. And reality is what heals. A noise often tries to hurry the process of reconciliation. It pushes for quick forgiveness, quick restoration, quick forgetting. But trust does not grow in speed. It grows in the stillness of time where actions are repeated with patience. Every small step in silence, a kept promise, a gentle gesture, a moment of honesty, becomes a stone in the rebuilding of a foundation. And one day, the silence that once carried pain begins to carry assurance. There is a quiet dignity in someone who chooses to rebuild trust without fanfare. They do not need to announce their change, they live it. They do not need to demand that others see their effort. They allow time to reveal it. Silence protects the process, keeping it pure and unforced. In that stillness, sincerity shines brighter than any speech ever could. For the one who was hurt, silence also gives space to watch and discern. It allows them to feel the rhythm of consistency, to sense whether safety can return. It is in the quiet observation that trust begins to reawaken, cautious yet hopeful. And for the one who caused the hurt, silence teaches humility. It teaches that rebuilding cannot be demanded, only earned, and that the earning happens not in the loud pursuit of forgiveness, but in the humble, steady walk of daily change. Silence holds both accountability and grace. Accountability, because without the cover of constant noise, actions must stand on their own. Grace, because silence allows room for growth without constant interruption or judgment. In this balance, trust slowly finds its strength again. The process is tender, but it is real. We must remember that trust is not restored by a single moment, but by countless moments that follow. It is not the noise of one promise, but the silence of many fulfilled promises that matters. Each quiet act becomes a piece of proof, a reminder that love is not gone, that commitment still lives, that hope can still be honored. Over time, the silence that once felt heavy with loss transforms into silence filled with peace. It becomes the calm space where forgiveness and trust dwell together, not as strangers but as companions. So let us not underestimate the power of quiet consistency. Let us not rush with noise to cover what must be rebuilt with patience. For trust grows not in the echo of words, but in the quiet steps of steady actions, until one day the silence speaks more loudly than any voice could ever speak. Promises can be made in a single breath, but their weight is revealed only in silence. Words may sound sweet in the moment, yet silence becomes the true stage where their worth is measured. In the stillness between one promise and its fulfillment, we learn if sincerity is present or if it is only a mask. Silence does not rush to cover mistakes. It simply waits, and in that waiting, truth is uncovered. It is not noise that reveals character, but the quiet stretch of time where actions either echo the words spoken or betray them. When trust has been broken, the ear grows sharper and the heart grows cautious. Every word spoken is weighed, every promise measured. In such tender soil, loud reassurances often ring hollow. What matters most is the steady unfolding of proof. Silence clears away the distractions, allowing us to see what is real. When someone says they will change, it is not the declaration that convinces us, but the quiet way they live out that change when no one is watching. Silence gives space for those actions to speak. There is a wisdom in waiting without words. Waiting allows us to see patterns, to recognize whether intentions are consistent or fleeting. A single kind act, if drowned in noise, may seem convincing for a moment, but time and silence reveal whether kindness was rooted in truth or in performance. In this way, silence protects the heart from being fooled by empty promises. It becomes a gentle guardian, reminding us to listen not only to what is said, but also to what is shown. Promises are fragile when they are not supported by actions. They may shine brightly at first, but without substance they fade quickly, leaving deeper disappointment in their wake. Yet when a promise is carried through in silence, without demand for recognition, it becomes stronger than words alone could ever make it. Silence becomes the canvas where truth paints itself. No explanations are needed, no loud assurances are necessary, because the reality of the promise kept speaks with its own power. In forgiveness, silence allows us to trust our own spirit again. It allows us to hear whether peace begins to grow within us as we watch another live out their words. It grants us patience to see if their remorse is genuine or if it is only wrapped in hurried apologies. Silence slows us down so that we do not mistake temporary effort for lasting change. It gives us the clarity to see what is real and what is fleeting. For the one who carries the burden of rebuilding trust, silence teaches humility. It reminds them that they cannot force belief through repeated words. They must prove themselves quietly, through patience, through honesty, through actions that align with the promises once broken. This humility, though difficult, is the soil where new trust can grow. In silence, others see not the performance of regret, but the reality of transformation. There is a beauty in silence that follows consistent truth. At first, the quiet feels uncertain, almost painful. But over time, as actions prove themselves, silence becomes comforting. It becomes the sign that promises are no longer in question because they have been lived out faithfully. In that stillness, the heart begins to relax again, to breathe again, to believe again. Silence becomes not a void, but a presence filled with the assurance that what is spoken is also honored. So let us not rush to demand constant noise as proof. Let us look instead to the silence, for it is there that truth reveals itself. Promises are tested not by how loudly they are spoken, but by how quietly they are kept. In that sacred quiet, trust begins to grow again, and forgiveness finds a safe place to rest. There is a silence that is heavy and cold, the kind that grows out of hurt and distance, the kind that feels like a wall between two souls. But silence does not always have to carry pain. When forgiveness begins to soften the heart and the will to rebuild trust takes root, silence changes its shape. It becomes gentler, warmer, and more welcoming. Shared silence becomes the ground where peace takes root, a place where words are no longer needed to prove love or sincerity. It is in this kind of silence that hearts learn to rest together again without fear. When people have been hurt, silence at first feels like a punishment. It is a gap filled with doubt, a reminder of brokenness. But once forgiveness has been chosen, silence can transform into something sacred. It becomes a sign of safety, a reminder that not every space must be filled with explanations or defenses. Sometimes, sitting together in quiet is the strongest proof that healing has begun. The absence of noise becomes the presence of peace. In moments of shared silence, we begin to notice the subtleties of connection. A glance, a breath, a presence. These things speak without sound. They tell us that even though words may falter, love is still alive. Silence becomes a language of its own, one that speaks softly yet carries weight. When two people can sit in silence and feel understood, it is a sign that trust is slowly weaving itself back into the fabric of the relationship. Peace does not shout. It does not arrive with fanfare. It grows quietly like roots spreading beneath the soil. Silence is that soil. It gives forgiveness a place to settle deeply, not just on the surface, but in the heart. It gives trust the stability it needs to grow tall and steady. Without silence, forgiveness may remain shallow, and trust may feel fragile. With silence, both are nurtured, both are allowed to breathe and strengthen. Shared silence also teaches patience. It shows us that we do not need to rush to fill every pause with words. Sometimes healing requires nothing more than sitting side by side, letting time do its quiet work. In those pauses, the heart gathers strength. In those pauses, the soul feels seen. There is no demand, no performance, only the gentle assurance that presence itself is enough. This kind of silence builds confidence, for it proves that peace can exist even without constant explanation. It is in these quiet moments that we also discover the depth of sincerity. Anyone can speak promises of change, but it is in silence that their truth is revealed. When someone remains steady, present, and respectful without needing to insist upon it with words, the silence speaks volumes. It tells us that they are not here to persuade us with noise, but to show us with presence. That presence becomes a balm, soothing the wounds of distrust and planting seeds of hope for what can grow again. Over time, shared silence reshapes the atmosphere of a relationship. What was once filled with tension becomes filled with calm. What was once uncomfortable becomes comforting. Silence that was once a sign of separation turns into a sign of closeness. Two people can sit together without needing to explain, without needing to defend, and still feel secure. This is the silence where peace lives, where forgiveness thrives, and where trust begins to blossom again. So when the heart longs for healing and the path to trust feels uncertain, do not run from silence. Embrace it, share it. Let it carry the weight that words cannot. For in that quiet space, peace takes root, forgiveness breathes deeply, and trust grows steady once more. There are times when words cannot hold the weight of what needs to be shown. Promises may sound beautiful, but their beauty fades if they are not supported by the truth of living them. In the journey of forgiveness and the delicate work of rebuilding trust, it is not the volume of words that matters most. It is the quiet presence of sincerity. When a heart is truly sincere, it does not need to shout. It does not need to prove itself with noise. It rests in silence, allowing its actions and its presence to speak. And in that silence, love begins to find its way back. Sincerity is something that can be felt more than it can be explained. A person who is sincere does not rush to defend themselves or to erase the hurt with quick apologies. Instead, they remain present, steady, and willing to walk through the silence that healing requires. They do not demand forgiveness, nor do they try to force trust to return. They simply show up quietly, consistently, with a heart that means what it says. In this stillness, the one who is wounded feels a gentle truth. Here is someone who is not running from the silence, but honoring it. Love that has been broken does not mend in noise. It mends in the calm assurance that sincerity brings. When we sense that someone's words are not empty, but rooted in truth, we begin to lower the walls that pain once built. The silence of sincerity holds no performance, no disguise, only a willingness to stand in humility and allow time to heal. This quiet presence speaks more loudly than endless speeches could ever speak. In silence, the mask of pretense falls away. We begin to see the difference between those who only wish to be forgiven and those who truly seek to change. A sincere heart does not try to cover wounds with noise, but acknowledges them with respect. It does not try to erase the past, but commits to creating a different future. That quiet resolve becomes the strongest foundation for trust. For the one who was hurt, the quiet presence of sincerity brings comfort. It says without words, I will not abandon this space. I will not run from the hard work of mending. For the one who caused the hurt, silence is the chance to let sincerity breathe, to let actions speak, to let change prove itself. This mutual understanding held in quiet begins to rebuild the bridge that was once broken. The beauty of silence lies in how it allows love to return without pressure. In shared silence, we begin to feel again what words could not restore. A look, a gentle touch, a steady presence. These speak more truly than promises shouted into the air. Love listens more to what is done in silence than to what is said in haste. And when sincerity fills that silence, love slowly trusts again, slowly breathes again, slowly believes again. Rebuilding trust is never a single act, but a series of moments where sincerity proves itself. It may take days, it may take years, but with each quiet step, with each silent proof, trust grows stronger. Silence becomes no longer a reminder of distance, but a reminder of closeness, of peace, of love that has endured. It is in this silence that both forgiveness and trust find a safe home. So let us remember that words may open the door, but it is the quiet presence of sincerity that keeps it open. When love is broken, it is not noise that restores it, but silence filled with truth. And in that silence, love finds its way home again. As we draw these thoughts together, let us remember that silence is not emptiness, but a gift. It is the quiet ground where wounds are allowed to breathe, where bitterness is released, where anger finds clarity, and where trust is rebuilt not by noise, but by steady proof. Silence carries the voice of sincerity, the rhythm of patience, and the heartbeat of love that dares to return. If we welcome it, silence becomes our teacher, guiding us toward forgiveness and showing us how to place our faith in one another once more. May we all find the courage to step into that stillness, to honor it, and to let it lead us back to peace. Good luck on your journey, and thank you for listening.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is a truth so bitter, so raw, that we hesitate to speak it aloud. A truth that stretches back through the ages, wrapping itself around the bones of those who came before us. It is the weight of injustice, the echo of cries unheard, the shadow of opportunities denied. The sad truth is that freedom has never been free. It was bought with blood, with sweat, with broken hands reaching toward a promise never fully given. And even now, after centuries of struggle, the chains have not vanished. They have only changed shape. The sad truth is that voices still rise, only to be silenced. That dreams still bloom, only to be trampled by those who fear their power. That a child born into struggle must fight harder, run faster, and shine brighter just to stand where another was placed with ease. The sad truth is that injustice and inequality are not relics of the past. They are not distant memories sealed away in history books, nor are they ghosts that haunt only the faint edges of our collective consciousness. No. They are alive, woven into the very fabric of our society. They are in the air we breathe, the streets we walk, the laws we live under, and the systems we are told to trust. For centuries, people have been judged, excluded, and oppressed, not for the content of their character, but for the color of their skin, the place of their birth, the language they speak, or the way they pray. Opportunity has never been handed out equally, and justice has rarely worn a blindfold. The scales that should balance fairness have been tipped in favor of the powerful, leaving the rest to struggle against forces greater than themselves. We see injustice in the hands of those who are meant to protect but instead persecute. We see it in the quiet rooms where decisions are made, where some are granted a seat at the table while others are kept outside, knocking until their fists bleed. We see it in the difference between schools built for the privileged and schools left to decay for the forgotten. In the size of paychecks, in the weight of prison sentences, in the doors that open easily for some and remain locked for others. And inequality does not rest. It multiplies, stretching its arms into every corner of life. It tells a child they are worth less because of where they come from. It tells a woman that her voice does not carry the same weight. It tells the poor that their struggles are their own fault, while the rich build their wealth on the backs of others. But the greatest injustice of all is that so many are told to accept these things as the way the world is. as if change is impossible, as if the suffering of some is the natural order of things. Yet, history has taught us otherwise. The cries of the oppressed have shaken thrones. The march of the determined has forced nations to change. The voices of the unheard have rewritten laws and redefined justice. Injustice and inequality may seem unbreakable, but they are not immortal. They will fall, not because time erases them, but because people refuse to be silenced. Because courage is stronger than oppression. Because justice is not a gift handed down. It is a right demanded, fought for, and won. And so we must continue, not just in words, but in action. We must recognize injustice where it stands and challenge it. We must see inequality for what it is and refuse to let it persist. For if we do nothing, we become part of the very system that holds so many down. The sad truth is that injustice and inequality still rule too much of the world. But the greater truth is this: they do not have to. And as long as there are those willing to rise, willing to speak, willing to fight, then one day they will not. The sad truth is that history is not a distant echo. It is a weight that many still carry on their shoulders. The past does not disappear simply because we wish it away. It lingers like a heavy fog, shaping the present and casting long shadows over the future. The burden of the past is not just in the stories we tell, but in the scars we bear. Scars carved into generations, wounds that have yet to fully heal. For those who have been wronged, history is not just something to be studied. It is something lived. It is in the bloodlines of those who were stolen from their homes, forced into labor, treated as property instead of people. It is in the voices of those who were silenced, whose dreams were dismissed as impossible, whose hands built nations but were never allowed to claim them as their own. We inherit not just the victories of our ancestors, but their struggles as well. The injustices they endured are woven into our identities, shaping the way the world sees us and the way we see the world. The burden of the past means that for many, progress has never come freely. It has always had to be fought for, pulled from the hands of those who would rather things remain unchanged. But the burden is not shared equally. There are those who walk through life without ever having to answer for history's crimes, who are never asked to carry its weight. And then there are those who are told to move on, to forget the past, as if centuries of pain can simply be erased with the passing of time. But how can one forget when the effects of the past are still so present? When the echoes of segregation, oppression, and exclusion still dictate who gets a fair chance and who does not. The burden of the past is in the neighborhoods that remain divided, in the schools that still do not offer equal education, in the justice system that does not serve all people the same. It is in the opportunities denied, the doors closed, the fear that still lingers in places where history has taught us to be afraid. It is in the fact that the same fights our ancestors waged against racism, against poverty, against oppression, are still being fought today. And yet, despite the weight of this burden, people have never stopped rising. The burden of the past may be heavy, but it has never been enough to break the will of those who believe in something better. Those who came before us did not surrender to their suffering. They built hope from it. They turned pain into poetry, grief into strength, oppression into movements that shook the foundations of power. So what do we do with this burden? Do we allow it to crush us, to keep us bound to the mistakes and cruelties of the past? Or do we take it, carry it forward, and use it to build something greater? The past must never be forgotten, but it also must not be repeated. We must learn from it, we must confront it, we must ensure that its weight does not fall onto the shoulders of the next generation. The burden of the past is heavy, but the determination of those who seek justice is stronger. And with that strength, we can rewrite the future, not as an extension of pain, but as a promise of progress. The sad truth is that adversity is a force that spares no one. It comes in many forms: poverty, discrimination, loss, and hardship. It tests the spirit, breaks the body, and challenges the soul. But the greater truth, the undeniable truth, is that even in the darkest times, resilience rises. It rises like the sun after the longest night. It rises in the hearts of those who refuse to surrender, in the hands of those who keep building despite the ruins around them. Resilience is not the absence of struggle. It is the ability to keep going despite it. It is forged in the fires of hardship, in the moments when everything seems lost, yet something inside refuses to be defeated. It is found in the single mother who works tirelessly so her children might have a future she never did. It is in the young student who studies by candlelight because education is the only escape from the cycle meant to keep them bound. It is in the voice of the protester who stands before the world and demands justice, knowing the cost of speaking out but refusing to be silenced. History has proven that the strongest people are not those who have never fallen, but those who have fallen again and again and risen every time. The enslaved who still sang songs of hope in the face of unimaginable cruelty, the oppressed who wrote their truths in poems and books when the world refused to acknowledge their existence. The marginalized who carved out space for themselves even when doors were slammed in their faces. Resilience is not about pretending that pain does not exist. It is about recognizing it, acknowledging it, and choosing against all odds to keep pushing forward. It is about finding light even when surrounded by darkness. It is about carrying the weight of struggle not because it is easy, but because giving up is not an option. And make no mistake, resilience is not just an individual strength, it is a collective power. When communities stand together, when people link arms and refuse to be torn apart by the forces that seek to divide them, resilience becomes unstoppable. It is the power of a people who refuse to accept that injustice is permanent. It is the strength of those who lift one another up, who carry forward the dreams of those who came before them. But resilience is not just about survival. It is about transformation. It is about taking pain and turning it into purpose, taking hardship and turning it into wisdom, taking oppression and turning it into revolution. True resilience is not just the ability to endure, but the courage to rise from the ashes and build something better. So when life knocks us down, when society tries to tell us that we are not strong enough, smart enough, worthy enough, we must remember who we are. We are the descendants of those who would not be broken. We are the voices that refuse to be silenced. We are the hands that have built and rebuilt, the feet that have marched for justice, the hearts that continue to beat with hope despite everything. Resilience is not just a word, it is a way of life. It is proof that no matter what storms come, no matter what walls are built against us, no matter how many times we are told we cannot rise, we will rise anyway, and in doing so we will show the world that adversity does not define us. Our resilience does. The sad truth is that too often words are underestimated. People treat them as if they are mere sounds, passing thoughts, ink on paper that fades with time. But words are not fragile. They are not fleeting. Words have shaped nations, ignited revolutions, and changed the course of history. Words have torn people apart, but they have also brought them together. They have been used to oppress, and they have been used to liberate. Words hold power because they are the bridge between minds and souls. They are the vehicle through which truth is spoken, pain is shared, and dreams are made real. With words, people have lifted themselves from silence, demanded justice, and spoken love into existence. With words, individuals have fought battles without ever raising a fist. Think of the voices that refused to be silenced, those who wrote, spoke, and sang when the world tried to erase them, the poets who turned suffering into art, the leaders who inspired movements with speeches, the mothers who whispered hope into their children's ears, even when the world around them was unkind. Words can break chains, even the invisible ones. A powerful speech can move a nation. A single sentence can change a person's life. A story told at the right moment can heal a wounded heart. But just as words can build, they can also destroy. They can cut deeper than any sword, leaving scars that do not fade. Lies have been spoken that have led to war. Hate has been spread through whispers and shouts, dividing people who were meant to stand together. Words can poison as easily as they can heal. That is why we must choose them carefully. We must recognize their weight, their meaning, their potential to shape the world. When we speak, we must ask ourselves, are we adding to the world's suffering, or are we helping to mend it? Are we using our voices to uplift, to educate, to inspire? Or are we using them to tear down, to belittle, to create more wounds where healing is needed? Every great change in history began with words. The abolition of slavery, the fight for civil rights, the movements for equality, all of them began when someone had the courage to say enough, when someone dared to speak truth in a world built on lies, when someone picked up a pen, stood before a crowd, or whispered hope into the ears of those who had none left. And though the world often tries to silence truth, words have a way of surviving. They live on, passed down from generation to generation. The stories of resilience, the songs of freedom, the poems of resistance, these do not die. They are carried in hearts, written in books, remembered in speeches. They continue to inspire long after the speaker is gone. So let us never underestimate the power of words. Let us speak truth, even when it is difficult. Let us use our voices to bring light where there is darkness, to build where there is destruction, to love where there is hate. Because words are not just sounds, they are forces. They are weapons, they are salvation. And when used with purpose, with courage, and with love, they can change the world. The sad truth is that the world often sees love and compassion as weakness. In a society that glorifies power, dominance, and self-interest, kindness is sometimes mistaken for naivety, and gentleness is dismissed as ineffective. But those who have truly suffered, those who have seen the worst of humanity, understand something deeper. Love and compassion are not just emotions. They are acts of defiance. They are resistance against the forces that seek to divide, dehumanize, and destroy. Hatred is easy. It is fueled by fear, by ignorance, by generations of pain that have gone unanswered. Hatred spreads like wildfire, feeding on anger, burning everything in its path. It builds walls between people, creates enemies where there were once neighbors, and turns differences into reasons for war. But love is a force that refuses to be swallowed by darkness. It does not deny suffering. It does not ignore injustice. Instead, it stands in direct opposition to them. Love and compassion do not mean turning a blind eye to pain. They mean refusing to become the very thing that caused it. They mean choosing to see the humanity in others, even when the world tries to convince us that they are not worthy. Throughout history, those who fought for justice understood this. Love was at the heart of every great movement for freedom. It was in the voices of those who sang through struggle, in the arms that embraced when the world turned cold, in the hands that lifted others, even when their own backs were bent from hardship. Love is not passive. It is not weak. It is the foundation of courage. When people marched for civil rights, they did not meet violence with violence. They met it with determination, with dignity, with an unshakable belief in the humanity of all people. When communities were torn apart by oppression, it was love that held them together. Love that gave them the strength to keep fighting. Love that reminded them that they were worth more than the cruelty they faced. Compassion is an act of rebellion in a world that teaches us to be selfish. It is an act of power in a world that values control over care. To love in the face of hate, to extend kindness where there is cruelty, to choose to heal rather than harm. These are not small things. These are revolutions of the heart. But let us be clear. Love and compassion do not mean silence. They do not mean accepting injustice. They do not mean ignoring suffering in the name of peace. True love calls for action. It demands that we stand up when others are pushed down. It demands that we fight, not with fists, not with hatred, but with a force even stronger, because love, when wielded with purpose, can dismantle the very foundations of oppression. It can turn strangers into allies. It can remind the world of something it too often forgets, that we are all connected, that we all deserve dignity, that we all belong to one another. So let the world call it weakness. Let them mock those who lead with love, who choose compassion over cruelty. But let us remember this. Love has outlasted empires. It has survived wars. It has endured slavery, oppression, and every attempt to erase it. And still it rises. Still it heals. Still, it stands as the greatest form of resistance the world has ever known, because love does not bow, love does not break, love transforms, and in the end, it is love, not hatred, that will win. The sad truth is that the world has given us many reasons to doubt, to fear, to despair. We have seen injustice stretch across generations, wars leave lands in ruins, and cruelty take the place of compassion. We have watched as promises of equality have been broken, and as those in power have chosen greed over goodness. We have witnessed suffering so deep that it has made some wonder if change is even possible. And yet, despite all of this, hope remains. Hope is not foolishness. It is not a naive belief that the world will fix itself, nor is it a passive dream that things will magically improve. Hope is an act of resistance. It is the refusal to accept that oppression will always win, that cruelty will always reign, that the suffering of today must be the suffering of tomorrow. Hope is the seed from which revolutions grow. It is the fuel that drives every fight for justice. It is the light that refuses to be swallowed by darkness. Hope does not mean ignoring pain. It means refusing to let pain define the future. It means seeing the struggles of today and believing that tomorrow can be different. It means looking at the wounds of history and knowing that healing is still possible. Hope is in the voices of young people who refuse to accept the mistakes of the past as their inheritance. It is in the activists who continue to march, to speak, to fight, even when the road is long. It is in the parents who teach their children kindness in a world that too often teaches division. It is in the hands of those who build, who create, who refuse to let destruction be the final chapter of our story. History tells us that change has never come easily. Every right we have today, every freedom, every protection, every opportunity was once just a dream, a hope carried by those who refused to accept the way things were. There was a time when people were told they would never be free, yet they fought and they won. There was a time when justice seemed unreachable, yet people demanded it, and they made it real. The world we see today is not the world that must always be. Hope reminds us that we are still writing the future, that we are still shaping what is to come. It tells us that our voices matter, that our actions count, that no fight for good is ever wasted. Hope is a choice. It is the decision to believe in the possibility of something better. And once we choose it, we must act on it. We must carry it forward in the way we speak, in the way we love, in the way we stand up for those who cannot yet stand for themselves. There will always be those who say that things cannot change. There will always be those who try to convince us that hope is useless. But history has proven them wrong time and time again, because hope does not die. Hope does not surrender. Hope is the heartbeat of progress. So let us hope, not passively, but with purpose. Let us hope, and then let us build. Let us work for a world that reflects the justice, the kindness, and the future is unwritten, and as long as there is hope, there is a chance to write a story better than the one we have been given. The sad truth is that injustice, pain, and struggle are woven into the fabric of our history. Inequality has persisted across generations. The burdens of the past continue to weigh heavily on too many, and adversity remains a cruel companion for those who dare to seek a better life. Words have been used to wound, to divide, to strip people of their dignity. And yet, in the face of all of this, something powerful endures. Resilience, love, compassion, hope. We are the inheritors of both suffering and strength. We stand on the shoulders of those who refuse to be broken, who fought with their voices, their hands, and their hearts to create a future they might never see. Their struggles were not in vain, and neither will ours be, because resilience is more than survival. It is the determination to rise again and again. It is the proof that no matter how many times oppression seeks to silence us, we will continue to speak, to sing, to write, to march, to demand justice. Love and compassion, too, are acts of defiance. In a world that so often preaches division, we choose unity. In a world that justifies cruelty, we choose kindness. Not because it is easy, not because we have forgotten the wounds of the past, but because we understand that hatred will never build what love can. Love is not weakness, it is strength. It is the force that has carried people through the darkest nights, the fire that refuses to be extinguished. And then there is hope. Hope is what transforms dreams into movements, what turns suffering into progress. Hope is not wishful thinking. It is the belief that the fight for justice, for dignity, for a better world is always worth it. It is the knowledge that no matter how great the obstacles, change has always been possible. So let this be our promise, not just to ourselves, but to the generations that will come after us. Let us carry forward the lessons of the past without being bound by its pain. Let us speak words that heal rather than harm. Let us rise from adversity, guided by love and fueled by an unshakable belief that a better world is not just a distant dream, but an achievable reality. The road ahead is long and the struggle is not over, but as long as we have resilience, as long as we have love, as long as we have hope, the future remains unwritten, and it is ours to shape.